Hey, what's going on, RotoBallers? It is almost done with week 9, not quite as we wrap up Monday Night Football here, but the Roto Revolution is here streaming our waiver wire episode this week, much like we did last week. So we are live talking what additions we need to be making to our team, what players we need to be grabbing off the waiver wire this week. As always, Kyle Richardson, senior fantasy analyst at rotoballer.com, and Jake Hubman, RotoBaller expert, here to talk football with me tonight, doing a little dance, a little shimmy. I'm feeling a lot better right now, so I think we're in for a good show.
Well, you sound a lot better because last week I was a little bit worried for your life. There was a few days there where I was like, I don't know if Kyle's going to make it. But here you are. You look energized. You look professional. You're in a tie. I don't even own a tie. The fact that you're wearing one is even, more beneficial than anything else. I could even fake it. I couldn't even put one on. I may have a clip-on tie somewhere.
I do like my ties. I do like my suits. I don't have to wear them every day, but I did have something I had to run and go do today real quick. After work, a little work function at another school, and had to go talk to some prospective students. So had to look decent tonight, and I didn't want to change after I got home. So the next pair of clothes that go on will be my PJs.
No, I don't want to visualize that, but I thank you for sharing.
We won't talk about what I'm wearing for pajamas, but we will talk about what players we want to be picking off the waiver wires headed into week 10. And it's getting thin out there. It doesn't really matter what league you're in, unless you're in like an 8-man league. You probably don't have a whole lot to grab off waivers right now. But I kind of alluded to it in my waiver wire article over on rotoballer.com. I mentioned that right now we need to be thinking about grabbing some of these guys. If you have maybe someone that's been hurt or someone that's been underperforming, we're closing in on the playoffs. There's no more time to wait on, guys. We need to reinforce our lineups, and we need to be set ready to go. And there are a few guys you could grab this week that might help you out with some decent schedules on their end coming up here really soon.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's getting super thin. By week 10 of the fantasy football season, there's not a whole lot of names that you haven't heard of at some point by now. A lot of these guys are probably guys you've heard names of over the past few weeks. They're finally starting to get a chance. Some of these guys are actually maybe like low-end stashes that you may want to get a week or two early. I know there's a running back that I'm going to talk about that is not going to maybe have a whole lot of value here week 10, but maybe down the stretch may be able to help you guys out.
Yeah, and the first guy that I'm going to bring up is a wide receiver. I write the wide receiver article, so
You
I
white
just
it?
like to cover.
You white a wide receiver article?
I write the wide receiver article, so I typically will take those on this episode. Jake's got players that he'll be talking about too, but my first wide receiver I want to talk about is Willie Snead. He continues to be brought up week after week, and another decent performance last week. He's only 34% owned right now, and in PPR leagues, this guy doesn't have a really high ceiling, but man, does he have a nice floor. The Ravens are on a bye in week 10, though, so you might be able to scoot through this week. So don't go burning a top waiver wire pick on him, okay? But keep him in mind because he has matchups against the Raiders, Falcons, Chiefs, and Buccaneers after the bye. Prime matchups for this guy in PPR leagues to offer you a really, really nice, safe floor. So he's a guy that I definitely want to be looking at, want to be grabbing. Again, you might not have to grab him this week, but I would definitely grab him next week if you have the room for him.
Yeah, I mean, a couple weeks ago, you're like, I really don't care about Willie Snead. And even if you look at the stats, you're like, it's okay. But he's slowly starting to take more of a role away from John Brown, which is a little surprising. I mean, John Brown was the early season, go-to receiver. We've always been never Crabtree, except for that 1 week where we got a little bit delusional. But, I mean, Willie Snead is somebody who's very, very consistent. More than anything, he's just consistent. He doesn't have that overly high ceiling, like you said, but he's somebody you can plug in with bye weeks, injuries, and he's going to be solid right there in the PPR league, right around that 10 to 12-point average or so, and it's a solid pickup, especially for bench depth in week 10, when you're starting to get some of these guys racking up some injuries like the A.J. Greens of the world.
Yeah, and that's why I really like Willie Snead, because if you head into a Sunday and all of a sudden one of your wide receivers has an injury and is not going to be playing that day, you can stick Willie Snead in a PPR league and you have a safe play. And that's all you really want in a situation like that. You don't need a guy that's going to go out and rack up a ton of points, but if you just need a safe play, he is the guy that will offer it to you the rest of the season.
And I'm seeing a comment over here from Chris, which I can't repeat really, Chris, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, at least he's safe. I mean, he's the safe play.
He's the protective play.
Exactly, and that's kind of what Chris is referring to, is the protection part of it, which I understand. But sometimes you need to have somebody like that on your bench, at least one at each position that at a drop of a hat you can throw in if needed.
Yeah, he will. If you play Willie Snead, he will not have any surprises later on down the road.
Sure. Yes.
Did I get that? Never mind.
I get it. Now I get it. I got you. I got you over there. So can I talk about a running back now?
Yeah, go ahead. We need to get off that subject.
Yeah, because that's going to go way south, way fast. And even that comment is bad. Anyway, one of the running backs who I've been talking about a lot for the last 2 weeks, a lot, like way too much, a lot, and I've gotten some hate for it. And this past week, it finally came to fruition, and I'm talking about Duke's mayonnaise. Duke Johnson of the Cleveland Browns came out there in a PPR league, scored 29 fantasy points. Yes, he only had 1 carry for 8 yards, but that's not why you have Duke Johnson. You have Duke Johnson for the 9 receptions, 78 yards, and 2 touchdowns that he had. And this new offense, we kind of expected it somewhat. We kind of talked about it on the live show on Sunday, that Duke Johnson is somebody who, in this offense of the Cleveland Browns can really be valuable. They were kind of struggling to find down the field weapons. They couldn't get on the same page with Callaway. Jarvis Landry has been somewhat disappointing. Duke Johnson is a playmaker. He's one of the most elusive running backs in football. He's somebody you need to get the ball in his hands, and they totally underutilized him here to start the season. Right now, he is on the borderline of 50% owned. Like, he's just below it. So I snuck him into the show because I'm able to do that because my microphone's turned on, and right now I can say whoever I want. But he's definitely somebody that if he's available in your league, this to me is my number 1 priority for Week 10.
You know my feeling about Duke Johnson. I feel like there was an episode we did a few weeks back where I had a very passionate rant about Duke Johnson and his lack of usage over the beginning of the season, and how you have such a dynamic weapon that didn't do anything. And now all of a sudden it looks like maybe, just maybe, there's a little light excuse me, at the end of that tunnel. So yeah, he's a guy that I've held on to in a couple of leagues just because I felt like, okay, there's going to be a coaching change at some point this year. Something's going to happen. Duke Johnson's going to be used. Hopefully that pays off.
It's entirely possible, but I'd rather be on the safe side, going back to safety. And we're talking about grabbing Duke Johnson, and hopefully you can grab Johnson without getting Chubb. That was amazing. That totally just came to my head out of absolutely nowhere.
All right. That's what you get with this show, though. A little comedy along with the fantasy football analysis. Moving on, let's grab another wide receiver here, Jake. In this one, I had to pick between 2 Bears wide receivers, your boy Taylor Gabriel or Anthony Miller. And I went with Anthony Miller this week, only 11% owned. I still like both of them. I don't like Allen Robinson. I'll just come out and say that right now. But I feel like they can be really versatile with their wide receivers right now. If Anthony Miller is healthy and Taylor Gabriel is healthy and Allen Robinson is healthy, Anthony Miller could move on the inside, Gabriel could move to the outside, Gabriel could move inside, and Miller could move to the outside, and Gabriel could make some plays out of the backfield as a decoy. I mean, they can do a lot of different things with these guys. So Anthony Miller is a guy that we really need to keep our eye on the rest of the year. I think he's a guy that we go out and add now in deeper leagues. I had a little bit of trouble trying to decide if I really think he's a PPR play or a standard play. I'm going to move forward with both. I think you could end up getting him in either league. He led in either type of league. He led the Bears with 5 receptions on 6 targets for 49 yards. And it was a tough matchup. It wasn't a great matchup against the Bills either. So, as we move forward, they do get the Lions here coming up. Lions, a little bit of a better pass defense as well. But, Mitch Magic, your boy Mitch Magic, I'll keep using it even though he had a bad week. If the offense can bounce back, Anthony Miller could offer you some upside here moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was somebody that, in the preseason had a lot of hype, a lot of stupid comparisons for Anthony Miller. I mean, I heard things in the preseason about he's, the next Antonio Brown. And I think that in the preseason,
Stephon Diggs.
Is that who it was? Yeah, whoever, whatever it is, the guy kind of got, an unfair rap there to begin with because that was huge expectations. The kid has a ton of talent. We've always said it, though. Mitch Magic is not the type of guy that's going to sit back there and supply a bunch of wide receiver ones in that offense. It's a lot of short to intermediate routes, and these guys are playmakers just trying to make something happen. Anthony Miller, I think, gets the highest touchdown upside in that offense because, just like you, I don't like Allen Robinson either. Not personally, but fantasy football related, I have no interest in Allen Robinson. And Anthony Miller is somebody who down the stretch, now that he's healthy, could give you some great value. 100%.
Who else? You got another position, or are you going to go running back again?
I mean, can I go running back again, or do you want me to go somewhere else?
Let's do it. I love my running backs.
That's right. Well, how about we talk about Mike Davis for a second? And
I don't want to talk about Mike Davis.
I don't really want to talk about him.
Chris Carson or Rashad Penny.
I don't really want to talk about any of them, Kyle, but this is for the people. It's not for you.
This is true.
So there. Mike Davis is somebody who he's widely available in leagues. Chris Carson's hip injury flared up again. He's day-to-day. Mike Davis is someone who's going to see a lot of volume this past week against the Chargers. 15 carries, 62 yards, and then added in another 7 receptions for 45. If for some reason Chris Carson doesn't play this coming up week, they're going to be in Los Angeles against the Rams, which is not an ideal matchup, but it's not a horrible matchup either. It's somebody who's going to see close to 20 touches this week, and if you're struggling, need to run him back, he's probably available in a lot of leagues. You can go out there and grab him, and he may not be a bad, 1 week fill-in if need be.
Why can't Rashad Penny just be a thing?
Because he's not very good, Kyle.
That's BS. He is good. He has just been set up for failure. Who uses a first-round pick on a running back and doesn't play them? I don't know what Seattle's thinking, but
have you ever heard Pete Carroll talk? I mean, the guy he may be like 3 fries short of a Happy Meal. I mean, all he does is chew that gum and chew it vigorously.
That has to be one of. I don't know what infuriates me more about backfields this year. The Seattle Seahawks drafting Rashad Penny and refusing to do anything with him, or the Detroit Lions drafting Kerryon Johnson and refusing to do not enough with him. Both just infuriating situations because they both could be so good, and yet they don't get. I mean, Rashad Penny doesn't get any volume. Kerryon Johnson only got 15 touches last week. Theo Riddick and LeGarrette Blount are still getting touches over him. I want to wash my hands of the situation. I want to be done with it, but I can't be because I like both running backs, and I think both running backs are, especially Kerryon Johnson, supreme talents. So as far as picking up Mike Davis, though, that concerns me. Just because, I mean, what is it that tells us that Mike Davis is going to be the guy if Chris Carson misses a week? Because it happened once before.
I'm worried about your emotions right now.
I'm so emotional right now.
I don't know where we draw the line between professionalism and emotional because right now we're dangerously close to the emotional side. I'm dangerously close to
it. I get it. If you're a Chris Carson owner and he let you down this past week and he's going to be questionable all week long, based on what I saw earlier, there's a really good chance that Chris Carson could end up missing some time. He needs to get healed up. So more than likely, Mike Davis is going to be the guy. But if you have any other options that you can use as a running back 2 or 3, I would do it. Like, I'm not running to the waiver wire to get Mike Davis. I understand if you're a Chris Carson owner and need to, but I can't trust that anything can happen with him. I can't trust the situation back there at all.
Oh, I never said I trusted it. I just said if you're looking for a running back. I mean, it's week 10. There's not a whole lot of options out there. The next guy I'm going to talk about is probably like on nobody's roster.
So of some running backs who are, I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent. Duke Johnson, I'd rather pick up. Ito Smith, I'd rather pick up. Mike Davis, only 23% owned. Jamal Williams, I'd pass him. Elijah McGuire, I'd pick up McGuire over Mike Davis right now. Donta Foreman, I'd pick up Foreman over him right now. I'm sorry, am I taking some more of your running backs?
Not yet.
Theo Riddick in PPR leagues, I'll take him over Mike Davis.
Okay.
That's just me.
I mean, that's your opinion, and we'll listen to it, but I'm sorry that I talked about Mike Davis. Dang, Kyle.
I got super worked up there. But Amari Cooper has a touchdown tonight, so that's all that matters.
Well, so now you're happier.
Another wide receiver real quick. Going to throw this name out again because he hasn't been able to graduate from the list yet. Still under 50% owned is Danny Amendola. And even with Kenny Stills back this week, even with Devontae Parker out there, Amendola still had another decent week. Now he's averaging under 10 yards per catch, so he's not a big playmaker, but the guy's getting enough targets and enough catches because he leads the Dolphins in targets. He had another 7 targets this past week. He leads the Dolphins in targets right now. He's getting more than enough targets right now to give him a safe floor in PPR leagues. This is a guy that if you're dealing with injuries, if you are short on wide receivers, he needs to be in your PPR lineups.
I'm afraid to say anything at this point, Kyle, because you're so emotional. I'm going to get yelled at.
I haven't yelled at you at all.
You better not, because I would yell back. Yeah. I mean, honestly, there's still one other name that's out there that I'm maybe a little bit higher on that I'm a little surprised about. But, I mean, there's actually quite a few decent wide receivers out there to pick up right now. And not to get off on a tangent here, but I'm reading through some of the comments that we've been getting. And a lot of people are throwing the name out there of Dez Bryant, being that the reports came out that he's, working out for the Saints. And is this something that we need to kind of slightly address since we're getting so many comments about it?
Yep, let's talk about it for a second, and I'll stay calm.
Okay, stay calm. So here's my Dez Bryant take. I was never a Dez Bryant hater. Do I think that he was elite as Dez Bryant thinks he is? No, he wasn't. He could have been somewhere all season long as a solid wide receiver too if he would have just admitted that he's not what he used to be. Well, he doesn't want to admit that, and so he's been, sitting at home starting Twitter wars for the past 10 weeks, and now he's going to work out for the Saints. A, I hate that because I still believe in Traquan Smith. But B, even if he goes there, if he goes anywhere, I don't see him being overly involved in an offense anytime soon. He may be something that goes out there and he some type of a possession receiver, maybe gets you 3 or 4 catches here in a couple of weeks, but I'm not, so quick to just run out there and grab Dez Bryant right now.
Yeah, I'm not picking up Dez Bryant. And if you're still holding on to him, I question why. Let's say he does. Let's say he signs in a really good situation. Okay. And we could speculate what those good situations may or may not end up being. He still needs to join the team. He still needs to get into game shape because I'm sorry, it doesn't matter what he's been doing. He might be in shape, but he's not in game shape. He still needs to learn the playbook, and he still needs to develop some sort of a chemistry with his quarterback. How many times do we see guys like picked up in the middle of the season, picked up at the beginning of the season, who are literally like cut or gone within a week or two? If he's signed, it might just be for depth, but it's not going to be fantasy viable in any way, shape, or form. So please do not waste any fab. Please do not waste a waiver wire selection. Just stay away from Dez Bryant. If you are a fan of the show and you watch this show, I'm begging you, please stay away from Dez Bryant.
I think you have a lot of false hope if you go out there and grab Dez Bryant thinking you all of a sudden lucked out and got a wide receiver 1 in week 10. Because that's not what Dez Bryant is anymore. I don't care where he signs.
Yeah, I would literally rather take anybody listed in our waiver wire article. Go to RotoBaller.com, go to the waiver wire section under NFL, and you can find it there. I would literally rather pick up any of those guys before I would use a waiver wire priority over Dez Bryant.
I would start myself over Dez Bryant right now.
I would too.
I haven't run a route since 1999, but I would still do it.
I was 11 years old.
Wow. All right, well, change of subject. Now let's talk about one more running back really quick. And I don't know if you're going to get emotional about this guy or not, so I'm going to say it quickly. And this is more of a stash. This is not somebody I would definitely want to pick up and start here in week 10. But Josh Adams of the Philadelphia Eagles, do we kind of want to get ahead of this just in case? As maybe it turns out to be something. Maybe he'll be your number 5 running back on your roster, and you just have a spot to place a flyer. Coming off the bye week, the week before the bye week, he led the team in touches and carries. He had 9 carries for 61 yards against the Jaguars. Corey Clement hasn't gotten anything going there. Wendell Smallwood has been inconsistent at best. It's still a decent offensive line in Philadelphia, and Josh Adams, if he can get more work going forward, could turn out to be somebody who has some value here late in the season, maybe.
Like you said, stash. This is a guy that you pick up and you wait before you start. I wouldn't grab him and try to start him right away. In fact, when we do our running back start sit show, you're probably going to hear this name come up and this backfield come up on my side. So Josh Adams has some value potentially. And if you are desperate for running backs, if you have injuries, if you have deep benches, then yes, I'm taking a shot at Josh Adams this week. Corey Clement, I mean, he's only averaging 3.3 yards per carry right now, so he's not really doing anything. Wendell Smallwood, we talked about, he has the elusiveness, based on his running back or his dynamic running back rating, which now that I'm not sick, I hope to do a little bit more with this week. Based on that, he has the opportunity when he touches the ball to make some big plays, but I don't think they're using him appropriately. So if I had to place my money anywhere, it's probably on Josh Adams for right now. Although, like you said, stash.
Yeah, I mean, it's for no other reason than just to hang on to him for a few weeks, see if something develops in it, and if it doesn't, you can toss him. He's not going to be somebody who's so, coveted this week that you're going to have to go out there and spend a high waiver claim or a lot of your fab budget. You can pretty much almost get him for free and just see what happens.
Yeah, one quick name I just want to throw out there again, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this guy because I've been talking about him for probably 2 weeks now. Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
And you did pronounce it right.
37% owned. He is the wide receiver 2 in Green Bay. Hearing today that Geronimo Allison might need core surgery. If that's the case, this is the guy. And if you own him and you started him this past week, which was a big recommendation of this show, if you started him, you were probably scared to death during the first half because he put up 0 catches on 2 targets, but then 3 catches for 103 yards in the second half, 101 yards in the second half. So the guy's got the big play ability. He's the big play guy there in Green Bay right now. Obviously, Devontae Adams has the athleticism to go big play as well, but Valdez-Scantling is a guy that I really, really, really want on my team in any situation the rest of the year. If you need help at running back, I'm using, honestly, a top waiver claim on him this week. If I'm even in the top 3 or 4, I would use it.
Yeah, 100%. If you need a wide receiver, he is, to me, by far the number one option out there. To me, if it's running back, you're looking Duke Johnson. If it's wide receiver, you're looking for MVS. Huge potential. I was one of those people at halftime starting to freak out a little bit because I was like, oh no, I told thousands of people to start Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and he has 0 yards. And I was starting to sweat a little bit, but then he came out, I believe it was like a 53-yard play, and you can kind of see it that he's got the attention of Aaron Rodgers. And anytime you have that attention, you always have the upside, and he's definitely 100% the number one target for the waiver or for the wide receiver position this week on the waiver wire.
Kenny out there, Kenny Solero is throwing out the hashtag Never Eagle running backs.
I mean, right now I can't hate that. I mean, I don't totally blame it. I mean, I think if they could commit to one guy solid and give him 15 to 20 carries a game, I think they would be productive, but I don't see that happening with anybody.
Anthony Tornetta also asked too. He's wondering what he does with Breida because he has Jones, Johnson, and Ingram on waivers.
Jones, Johnson, and Ingram all on waivers. Holy crap.
Yeah.
I would almost rather have any of those guys over Breida right now. Breida is literally held together. When you put your Christmas decorations at the end of the year, Kyle, and you store them in your attic or the outside in the garage, and you leave some of that like Scotch tape in the box, and then when you get it out the next year, after it's sat in the garage for all years, like really it just breaks. That's what's holding Matt Breida together right now.
Why do you have Scotch tape on your Christmas decorations?
Well,
how are you hanging them up around?
No, with all your wrapping paper and stuff, and then you bring it out the next year.
I don't keep that stuff together. They're separated. So.
Okay, well, you're a better man than me, Kyle, but I'm just trying to paint a picture here that the dude is held together with elementary, paper mache. He's not very durable right this second, and that
I'm
worries
going Aaron
me.
Jones there. Like, if I can drop Matt Breida to pick up Aaron Jones, I'm fine with that. Aaron Jones, I think he's just going to keep getting better as the season goes along. The efficiency is there. We're just waiting on that volume. As soon as the volume comes, this guy is a huge breakout candidate for the rest of the season.
I don't know. Kerryon Johnson sitting out there is very entertaining to me also. He would be 1B on my list.
BK Rhoda wants you to put on the helmet, but he also said Jake over Kyle earlier, so I don't know if I can trust him.
I mean, he's my buddy, even though I've never met him. Nice to meet you.
Oh, man. All right. So let's...
can I talk about one person who's not a running back or a wide receiver?
Yes, give us one.
It's Jack Mother Doyle of the Indianapolis Colts. Doyle. I mean, he's less than 40% owned. Why? I mean, I know they were on bye last week, and I know he came off an injury, but people, you got to pick up Jack Mother Doyle because otherwise you're going to be hurting. And the only reason I say this, and I don't think he comes out here and takes all the value away because of Eric Ebron. Eric Ebron ruins things. We've known this for years. He's still going to have value in that offense, but the tight end position is so thin. I mean, there's not very many options on a weekly basis. The fact that Jack Doyle is somebody who you can start on a weekly basis needs to be owned. He needs to be grabbed. Isn't a must start every single week, but he's definitely somebody you can plug and play at any moment, especially at like the thinnest a position has ever been in fantasy football.
Andrew Luck loves him some Jack Doyle. You love yourself some Jack Mother Doyle, but Andrew Luck loves himself some Jack Mother Doyle. He's he's been gone for weeks now, and he literally reduced Eric Ebron from being a top 5 or 3 tight end to being completely touchdown dependent. So that right there tells you what Andrew Luck in this offense thinks of Jack Doyle and using him on a consistent basis.
Yes. Love Jack Doyle. Jack Doyle fan club.
100%. And I mean, coming up, I mean, they've got games against Jacksonville, Tennessee, and Miami coming up. Jacksonville might actually be a pretty decent matchup for him because you're always worried about those wide receivers and how that secondary acts. Jack Doyle and Eric Ebron could be kind of an X factor in that game to take some of that pressure off. So, we'll see. But if he keeps getting 6 receptions for 70 yards and a touchdown, he is a must start. And that's what he had the last time he was on the field. Now, that was against Oakland, so I'm not going to get too worked up over that. But he's definitely in the conversation of being in your lineup every single week, especially with how thin the position is right now.
Mark Pucka wants to know if Doyle is better than Njoku.
Oh, I don't know if I could say that.
I can't say that yet. David Njoku has elite potential. If Jack Doyle was there by himself and there was no Eric Ebron, then we may be in it'll be a closer conversation. But Eric Ebron's still going to be there, and he's still going to vulture touchdowns at times. I'm still taking Njoku over Doyle, even though I love Jack Doyle.
Josh said Fournette thoughts.
My thoughts are, even if he comes back, how much of a split is he going to be used with Yeldon and Carlos Hyde? I can't see them going
I'm not
solely
dropping him.
No, but I'm not going to be in a rush to start him if he comes back this week either.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be some type of a time split. They're not going to bring him back from a hamstring injury and all of a sudden give him 25 carries a game. I'm going to want to see it for a while.
Isaac Horan brought up Adam Humphries. Yes, Isaac, I go into Adam Humphries in my article, so go check that out. I talk about him a little bit. A really sneaky play. Maybe I'll throw him in here in a second. But back to Fournette. Whole running back situation there scares me. A lot of owners spent high draft picks on him, and he is back this week. So, I mean, it sounds like today he was going through team drills, and he looked good. So what's going to happen? I don't know. It could be very easily the same volume that we've seen from Fournette, and we just completely forget about Carlos Hyde. And it could be a situation where the Jaguars say, you know what? For us to be playoff relevant, for us to try and sneak in here at the end of the season, we need him healthy the rest of the year. So we're going to give him a lot of plays off. I'm not starting him right away, but I'm definitely not dropping him. And if somebody did drop him and he's on your waivers for some reason, I'd be okay wasting a spot on him just to see at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Another guy also here, Adam Mock. He wants to know about Elijah McGuire. And you and I talked about him off camera before we started. We've been on the Trenton Cannon bandwagon for a couple weeks thinking that he was going to get added, more touches in that offense since Bilal Powell went out. Didn't quite happen. Now that Elijah McGuire came back, he's somebody who looked decent there on Sunday. And I think his role grows more and more each week as they work him back into the offense more and more. And Elijah McGuire is somebody else who has some value this week. Not my top waiver wire grab, but he's definitely somebody that needs to be paid attention to, especially if you're looking for a running back.
Yes. Real quick to Adam Humphries, because that name came up. I do include him. He's only 1% owned right now. His fantasy value last week came from a couple of touchdowns, but he has double-digit PPR points in 3 of his last 4 weeks, and he has at least 7 targets in 4 of his last 5 weeks. So it doesn't matter if it's been Ryan Fitzmagic, kind of. I don't know. I don't know if you can say that right now.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if it's been Fitzmagic. It doesn't matter if it's been Jameis Winston. Both of them have found him recently over the last week. But as I said here too, it's going to take a little bit of guts. We'll say guts. We won't say the other word. For you to actually pick up Adam Humphries and stick him in your lineup. So I saw the hand motion.
I want to make sure that people knew what you were talking about.
I wouldn't run to the waiver wire to grab him, but I think he is a really sneaky option in deep leagues.
Well, that's one way to say it. But yes, he's somebody who has value. I wasn't expecting that much from him as much as we saw last week. I was expecting more Godwin, who ended up going to the sidelines with an injury there, temporarily missed some snaps. Mike Evans didn't look that good. I expected more from Deshaun Jackson. Adam Humphries is somebody who definitely stepped up in that offense, and you can still call him Fitzmagic. As long as he's under center, he is known as Fitzmagic.
Fubar Bill Murray wants to know if MSU is going to be OSU this week, and I hope not. I hope not. I'd like to get into that last game against Ohio State and have both teams ranked inside the top 10. So I'm rooting for Ohio State to get a victory this week.
You know what I hope for, Kyle?
What's that?
I hope for more likes, because there's 220 people watching right now, and there's 30 likes on this video.
How dare you not like the video, people?
I mean, I'm shaking my head in disgust right now.
How long has this video been going so far?
I hit the start streaming button 30 minutes and 30 seconds ago.
Okay. So maybe a couple more names, a couple of quick drops here, just because, again, this is a show that we just don't do live. It does drop. So if you've had a question here tonight and we haven't gotten to it, make sure you, after the video is done and it pops up, make sure you go back through and drop your comment there. Either Jake or myself or one of our other RotoBaller writers will be with you quickly to answer your question. We respond pretty quick to those. So let's jump over here. I just want to throw out a few more wide receivers real quick. TJ Jones, another kind of deep stash, only 1% owned in fantasy leagues. I think he's a guy to keep an eye on. He takes over in the slot for Golden Tate in Detroit. Maurice Harris is interesting because we're finding out now that it sounds like Paul Richardson's going to be missing time. If that happens, if Jamison Crowder still misses time, this is a guy that's coming off 10 receptions on 12 targets for 124 yards. In week 10, he gets the Tampa Bay secondary. So he could be a really nice play this week if you are looking for an option to put in at wide receiver. And then also with the A.J. Green injury, I think we just need to keep an eye on John Ross at all as well, only 3% owned.
Yeah, and I mean, remember the beginning of the season, we were all aboard John Ross. We thought this was going to be John Ross season, and then Tyler Boyd decided to say, hold my beer, and went, total crazy on us. And now John Ross may get another chance, at least for a couple weeks. It doesn't sound like AJ is going to miss a ton of time, but even if it's 2 weeks or so, that could be some decent value for John Ross.
Tight end wise, we talked about Chris Herndon on the live show, and I know that you were a little skeptical trying to start him. Another decent week though. He keeps finding the end zone. He didn't this past week. He only caught 4 passes for 62 yards, which is still good, but he's been finding the end zone too. Only 14% owned. If you need tight ends, I think this is a guy to take a shot on.
Yes, absolutely. We talked about with Jack Doyle right there. There's not a whole lot of tight ends in fantasy football. There's a lot of them that you just kind of want to stream and just roll with on a week-to-week basis. Chris Herndon is somebody who's developed a role in that offense. He's got huge touchdown upside. I think that somewhat gets limited a little bit if Quincy Enunwa can come back and get healthy, but he's still somebody at a tight end position that can provide some value from week to week.
And my QB, my quarterback pickup of the week.
Don't do it.
Don't do what?
I know who you're going to say. Go ahead.
Mr. Dak Prescott.
I knew it was coming.
Hey, just reminding you, since week 4, he is a top 10 fantasy quarterback.
I blame the people for this one because I'm on their side 100% of the time. However, you got a lot of hate for some preseason Dak Prescott love.
A lot
of hate. Like, I feared for your life at times. Now all of a sudden that it's somewhat been working out here the past few weeks, you get to throw it out there a lot more. And yes, I mean, he's played better. I mean, I don't really want to admit that Amari Cooper got a touchdown. I kind of like to just forget about it if entirely possible, but it is what it is.
Nope. You don't get to forget about that. And I'll remind you on Sunday again.
Okay. Thank you.
Actually, tomorrow night, because we're recording more episodes tomorrow night, so I'll tell you then.
Can't wait.
Fubar just threw up a little bit.
I don't blame you. I'm right there with you.
All right, Mel, that's going to wrap up this episode of the Roto Revolution, talking waiver wire tonight. Again, this is something we are going to be doing the rest of the season, more than likely, streaming this waiver wire episode. Got some things in the work that we're trying to put together right now, so we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. But same great content. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't yet. Make sure you like the video if you haven't yet. If we didn't get to your questions on the show, leave them down below in the comment section after the video post, and we'll get to them as quickly as possible. You can also scroll down to the description, and you can follow either myself or Jake on Twitter. And make sure you also subscribe to Jake's YouTube channel, The Fantasy Headliners. Thanks again for another great week. Good luck this week as you work the waiver wire and get prepared for week 10. And we've got 2 more episodes that's coming out for Start Sit as well. So keep an eye out for those. Thanks, and have a great rest of your evening.
Yep, have a good one, everybody. And remember, don't fall for the Dez hype.